The FBI wants to unmask whoever runs Archive.today, and they're doing it quietly. There is some controversy. People could be using it to preserve banned content, or they could be using it to save leaked information platforms, or maybe even the government want removed. This is like the internet's Banksy or something like that. In the subpoena, it says the electronic format that they would like is a CD-ROM. That is delusional. Hello, everybody. My name is Rachel Braun, and welcome back to the Braun and Brains podcast. So just a heads up, I have re-recorded this intro multiple times today because it's like 4 p.m. I am so freaking tired, and every time I record it, I just find that I sound like an NPR talk show host or something. I think it's because I edited a lot of other people's footage for their podcast today, so like I'm picking up on how they're talking or something like that. But I hope I sound okay today. It is a Monday, it is raining out, and I would really like this to go out as soon as freaking possible. I was able to get my newsletter out on time this morning. If you've already heard some of these stories over on my newsletter, well, this is going to be a little bit more in depth. And if you're interested in any more tech news that is similar to this, I have a newsletter called Braun and Brains. The newsletter has a bunch more stories about tech and adjacent topics, similar to the ones that I will be talking about today. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. So today we're going to be talking about the FBI subpoenaing Archive.today or Archive.today and its mysterious Anon founder. We're also going to be talking about some recent research around whether AI is actually able to do everything we think it can do, and the growing AI slop in the advertisement industry and the podcast industry. And then finally, we'll be touching on 2 consumer devices that I think are cool. So one of them is going to be for the kitchen, and the other one is going to be just a wearable ring that records you. I have a lot of things to say about wearables that can record us, but I will talk about that more when we get to that story. So let's start off with the FBI subpoenaing Archive.today's domain register. So the FBI has officially subpoenaed Tucows, which is the Canadian domain register that manages Archive.today as part of an undisclosed federal criminal investigation. Archive.today or Archive.today is a web page snapshot service that saves a static copy of a site at a specific point in time. And it basically functions as like this digital time capsule. So even if the entire page is changed or deleted, everything will stay the same. Everything will be preserved in time. So the text, the images, the layout of the page, that stuff will stay exactly how it was looking at whatever time Archive.today took a snapshot of it. The tool is popular amongst journalists and researchers and internet users for preserving evidence, avoiding link rot, and securely referencing online content. Side note, link rot is when a hyperlink stops working over time, so it points to a page that could have been like deleted, it could have been moved, it could have been changed, but that is your vocab word for the day, link rot. It is also commonly used to bypass paywalls or to capture government documents before they disappear, which is what I use them for. Operating since 2012, Archive.today stores its data across multiple data centers in Europe. You could think of this as something that's similar to the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, but the origins of this, we just don't know anything honestly about it. It's super mysterious. I find it to be a little bit creepy and cool, and I hope that the FBI releases a little bit more information. Like if they're going to be looking for it, I kind of want to know who this is. Domain registration lists the name Denis Petrov, based in Prague, which is widely believed to be an alias, leaving the site's true creator unknown. So apparently, Denis Petrov, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is a very popular name in Prague. I had no idea. So going back to the subpoena, all of that went down the day before Halloween on October 30th, 2025. And it orders Tucows to hand over any information that could identify the person or group operating Archive.today. So what the FBI is asking for. So the order is demanding an extensive list of records covering a full year, so from October 2024 to October 2025, including the customer or subscriber's name, address, and billing details, the length of service and when the account was created, IP addresses and other network identifiers used to access or manage the domain, device IDs such as IMEIs or IMSI numbers, payment information, including credit cards or bank account numbers, connection logs showing session time, call records, or messaging routing, and types of service used, so like cloud hosting, email, or gaming services. So I just list off a ton of things, but basically the FBI wants a complete map of every traceable detail linked to the Archive.today domain. They want to know who registered it, they want to know who paid for it, they want to know what devices were used, and where those connections just originated. So why the FBI might be doing this? So the subpoena is saying that it's a part of an ongoing federal criminal investigation, but it does not say anything about what the case actually involves. So we don't really know why they need this information. And this is a standard practice for sealed investigations where agencies avoid tipping off the target. So this wasn't really public. I found out about it from a different news source, and then I actually was able to go and find the link to this subpoena and read through it. But still, the scope of this request kind of offers us clues. So by targeting Tucows, the FBI isn't going after users who visit Archive.today. It's going after whoever operates or hosts it. So that means the agency may be trying to identify the anonymous user behind the site, which I think that's what they're trying to do, trace activity that could tie Archive.today to specific crimes such as data leaks, copyright violations, or obstruction of digital takedowns. Or at minimum, this could just be them establishing jurisdiction and trying to determine where the site is being run from. I feel like they're trying to identify the owner, though. I don't know why, but I'm sure that there are some copyright violations that happen. I know that going around paywalls is probably illegal. There could be a data leak, I guess, but I feel like this is like the internet's Banksy or something like that. I don't know. I want to know who this is. If you're watching this, whoever the person is behind it, and you want to stay hidden, I am really good at keeping secrets. So remember I said Archive.today is known for allowing anybody at all to permanently save and access those snapshots of web pages, even after they have been deleted or if they are paywalled. So for the most part, this is a tool that is used for transparency or research. Like I said, that's what I'm using it for. But there is some controversy because people could be using it to preserve banned content, or they could be using it to save leaked information that platforms or maybe even the government want removed. Okay, so we got to talk about the secrecy clause. So Tucows was ordered to not disclose the existence of the subpoena, which is actually crazy because I found it on Twitter. The actual Archive.today Twitter account posted it and said canary and a link to the PDF of it. So the document explicitly warns that revealing it could interfere with the investigation and that non-compliance could result in court action or contempt charges. The FBI gave Tucows until November 29th, 2025 to comply, either by providing the records in person in Washington, D.C., or electronically to a designated FBI agent. And something that is hilarious is in the subpoena, it says that the electronic format that they would like is a CD-ROM. That's insane. I barely know what a CD-ROM is. That is delusional. So obviously Archive.today does not give a crap. They posted this anyway. They're kind of saying whatever. One of the really big reasons why this matters is this kind of subpoena, especially one issued under this statute, which covers criminal investigations, shows us how seriously the U.S. government is treating this case. So this could also raise a ton of questions around things like press freedom and digital archiving, around jurisdiction, around transparency. Because the subpoena is sealed, the public has no insight into what prompted it or what the FBI suspects. And I think this story is going to get pretty hot, over the next few months. Maybe that I'm just saying that because I'm a super user of Archive.today, but in short, the FBI wants to unmask whoever runs Archive.today, and they're doing it quietly. By subpoenaing Tucows for everything from IP logs to payment cards, they're building a forensic trail that could reveal the identity of one of the internet's most privacy-obsessed site operators. And we have no idea why they want to uncover this anonymous king or queen or something else. Now, that was great to lead off the podcast with no AI news, but we do have to cover some AI stuff because this is a tech podcast and there's no running away from it. And basically what I think is that AI might not actually be improving. We might just be getting better at convincing ourselves that it is. And 2 new studies suggest that we might be closer to this truth than most are willing to admit. Researchers at the Oxford Internet Institute did something that they should have done a super long time ago. They investigated whether AI benchmarks are scientifically valid. They examined 445 benchmarks, the very tests behind breakthrough performance claims that we constantly hear, and most of them turned out to be built on kind of shaky foundations. So only 16% used statically sound comparisons, so not great, and nearly half lacked clear definitions of what they were measuring. Many benchmarks reused datasets or featured overly simplistic tasks that barely resembled real-world conditions. So in other words, they were testing AI on clean artificial problems and then using those results to predict how it would perform in the messy complexity of real life. Their paper is called Measuring What Matters: Construct Validity in the LLM Benchmarks, and it proposes 8 reforms to address this. And this includes clear definitions, proper statistical evaluations, and shared checklists to verify the legitimacy of tests. In short, the basics of good science. The most impactful point about all of this for me is the fact that if the benchmarks are this flawed, then much of the progress that we've actually been celebrating might not be real at all. Because the people that are testing AI are making up the test to test AI, it's just like a fake thing. It's like a fake test. It's like if I created a test about how great it is to be Rachel Braun, and then I take the test as Rachel Braun, it comes out as an A. Like, yeah, they're creating a test saying, this is a reasonable answer, and then giving it to the AI. And because it comes out as like the answer that they want, they're like, okay, that's reasonable. But, that is very nuanced. Like, what is reasonable is nuanced. What is helpful, that's super nuanced. And so all these tests that are showing us AI is getting smarter and smarter and smarter, well, maybe those tests just like aren't great themselves. Now, I'm sure we are progressing with AI. I'm not super cynical on that, but I do think this is an industry that needs to be taken maybe accountable more, the AI testing industry, and just the benchmarks and the standards in which we put technology up against. A few days after I checked out that, I actually read something from Scale AI and the Center for AI Safety that tried to do something completely different by not using benchmarks at all and actually using AI in the real world to conduct a test. Using the Remote Labor Index, they gave leading AI agents a bunch of different tasks that real freelancers would do. So think design, coding, copywriting, and data analysis. The result was not shocking. If you're somebody that has done any of those things before, I have definitely had to do a lot of things in the design and copywriting space. Even the best AI agents were only able to fully automate about 2.5 of the projects at a quality level acceptable for paying a client. Most attempts failed because of incomplete work, logical flaws, or subpar professional standards. The rare wins only happened on super simple tasks like logo design or generating sound effects. But it just wasn't able to do complex jobs requiring multiple steps or if tools had to be integrated. Now, for comparison, the median human freelancer spent about 11.5 hours per task, and AI is nowhere near that level of performance. So maybe AI could spit out something a little bit quicker than a human, but, I personally rather pay somebody 11.5 hours for something that I want done right than give something to an AI for free or under my ChatGPT subscription and get something that's just wrong and not what I wanted. So congrats to the freelancers out there. Your jobs are safe. These studies highlight the same issue from 2 different perspectives. Oxford shows us that the actual tools that we're using to measure AI performance are deeply flawed. And Scale AI is showing us that when we shift our focus from artificial metrics to actual tasks, performance is collapsing. So we've built this narrative of AI progress around metrics that might not reflect anything meaningful. And when we remove the controlled conditions and ask AI to operate in the wild, it often fails. This is what it looks like when construct validity is missing. We get impressive sounding numbers that don't actually reflect real capabilities. I think this actually could be a huge barrier, maybe the single biggest barrier for meaningful progress with AI, because we're optimizing for the wrong scoreboard. So we're optimizing to pass these tests that aren't really showing any progress. It's like your friend that kind of memorized all the answers to the test without actually soaking up all the knowledge that they need to pass the test with their own noggin. And I found these 2 studies really interesting because I've been seeing AI pop up a lot in rigorous fields, not saying that freelancing isn't rigorous, but maybe these fields are ones that relied a little bit more on highly educated subject matter experts. And I'm kind of thinking, what if AI can't do freelance work well? I'm a bit concerned for it in these other places. Anthropic released Claude for Life Sciences, a model built for biotech R&D tasks like literature reviews, lab protocols, and regulatory documentation. Adtalem Global Education and Google Cloud are launching AI credentials for healthcare students covering clinical applications, ethics, and patient safety. Students will get hands-on experience with Google's Gemini and Vertex tools as a part of the training. I know I'm slamming AI a lot, but I do actually think it's important to integrate new technology into workflows, and I do understand that means integrating technology sometimes before it's perfect. And the reason I think why that's okay is it's ensuring that industries don't fall behind, and it allows humans who are doing maybe something like grunt work or something that we consider to be grunt work to move into positions that only they can perform. So really optimizing, in my opinion, the human experience. If you don't integrate AI or new tools into the workplace, your workplace could end up looking a little bit like Dunder Mifflin. It could be slow. It could be held back. I don't know. We've all seen The Office before. Not super happy with the standards of AI today and kind of hesitant to be seeing it in such serious fields, especially if it can't do tasks that I'm doing every day. I don't know if I want my doctor to be using it every day, but I understand that it has to happen sooner rather than later. Moving on from AI in the lab to AI in your pocket. At this point, we've seen AI-generated content, and some of us were even fooled by that video of the bunnies jumping on the trampoline. I actually 100% was fooled by the bunnies jumping on the trampoline. I was like, that is the cutest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Anyway, when AI slop first comes to mind, you might be thinking of something that your great aunt reposted on Facebook, or maybe it's something that your little cousin has been repeating over and over again because he saw it in a TikTok. Well, it's getting a lot worse, and it's getting a lot worse across short form and long form content. Podcasters are now using AI voice clones from tools like 11 Labs to translate episodes, fill in missing dialogue, or simulate guest appearances. These tools make scaling easier and help creators reach global audiences. But this obviously raises questions about authenticity and creative integrity. I have a lot of thoughts about 11 Labs. First and foremost, I just don't think it's there yet for longer form content. It doesn't track inflections correctly right now. I actually did use 11 Labs before, and that's because we were having a little bit of issues with one of our podcast hosts reading something verbatim. And although it did sound like them, it just wasn't totally it. So I think if you don't know who the person is, maybe 11 Labs would work, but I can still personally hear it. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So you tell me, if you ever listen to something from 11 Labs, can you tell that the inflection is a little bit off? I say all that, but I do know that this is coming. Like, I am totally aware that AI podcasts will be here eventually. And I don't know if they're going to be super popular when it comes to personality podcasts. And I think that having personality now is going to be something increasingly important, because I think that's something that is really hard to manufacture. We even see now, like, people that are like industry plants and things like that, and how quickly their own podcasts die out. So imagine an industry plant being created by a company like 11 Labs, or maybe a different AI company or a media company as a whole using 11 Labs. I just don't think it's going to stick. But we're still seeing a lot of fake podcasts pop up, and it's kind of drowning the space a lot. And I think it's kind of disappointing, and just like, why put out trash into the universe? But anyway, TikTok Shop is also getting a lot of it, and I have seen these all over my TikTok. I know I really need to delete TikTok because I just shouldn't be on it, but I have all my drafts saved on there, and all my ones from college. I graduated college in 2020, so there's like a ton of stuff on there from like my senior year, from obviously when I was like living at home with my parents, and like when I first moved to New York. Like, it's gonna be so sad, but I think it's up to like 40 gigabytes on my phone. I will insert a screenshot of how many gigabytes it is, and maybe you guys will help me and tell me how I can download them all really quick and seamlessly, or even just tell me to rip it off like a Band-Aid and just delete it. But anyway, TikTok Shop said it rejected roughly 70 million product listings and banned 700,000 sellers in the first half of 2025 after uncovering large-scale fraud powered by generative AI. So scammers used AI to create these fake listings that looked completely legitimate. One time I tried to order a stone bath mat, and it was just a regular like plastic bath mat with stones printed on it. That's something I fell for. And I think we're just going to be seeing a lot of people trying to sell you crap. And I think the best thing we can possibly do at this point is to just stop buying so much stuff and be really thoughtful about our consumer habits, especially going into this holiday season. I love to shop, and I don't think it's something that I will ever stop doing. I'm somebody that loves getting gifts for their family. I'm somebody that likes to shop for clothes, but I do think that the older I get and the more that technology and shopping online is impacted by AI and just the swarm of advertisements that we're like consuming every day, I just think I'm going to be probably consuming less and less and less as time goes on. All right, last thing, we're going to end on kind of, I guess, kind of a positive note, but I have like hot topics about it, but they're kind of positive because I think they're cool. So first thing is the Sandbar Stream Ring. So this smart ring is priced at $250 and it records and transcribes voice notes directly into an app. And I think this marks a shift towards wearables that are built for productivity rather than fitness. And this is a lot different than the Friend AI pendant that I hate. If you don't know what the Friend AI pendant, it's like a necklace with a little white thing on it that records your conversations that you have with your friends, and it also can like talk back to you and act as a friend. I think that's creepy. And I think that the Sandbar Stream Ring is interesting because I am somebody that really likes to go on walks and have meetings. Sometimes I actually walk and use Granola and just talk into it. Granola AI is like an app that I like to use to transcribe my work meetings, and I'll go on a walk and I'll like talk on the phone, but I'm just talking into that AI thing and it summarizes like my entire brain dump. So I like the idea of the Sandbar Stream Ring. Where I get a little bit nervous with it is, where's this information being kept? What is it doing with the notes that it creates? What other prompts can you be asking it to do in the future? And obviously, I don't want it recording other people. I think it's just important to let people know if they're being recorded and if they're not being recorded, because people act totally different when they're being recorded. And honestly, in a work setting, sometimes I want people to know they're being recorded because I find that when you know that you're being recorded, you choose your words more thoughtfully. And in a group meeting, especially when there's a ton of people, it's like, yeah, you should be watching what you're saying because there's a ton of people here. We don't want to be wasting anybody's time. And if we weren't recording the meeting, we can all be talking about how fun our weekends were for the next, hour and a half. And sometimes that is fun and sometimes I'm the one leading that. But, for the most part, I think people understand that if they're being recorded, they have to be saying something thoughtful because it will be documented and sent out to the rest of the team. So if you are somebody that signed up to get this in 2026, let me know. I am very interested and I think it looks pretty. And they had a really nice ad for it. It was really beautiful. It was like a woman laying down in grass. I'll insert a screenshot of it if I can find it again. ChatGPT also had some beautiful ads. So with as many TikTok Slop AI ads that we've been seeing, there are some AI companies that seem to be embracing the human experience and trying to integrate that a little bit more into their creative direction. All right, last thing. I saw this on Puck. Posha is a $1,500 countertop robot chef that uses sensors and computer vision to cook full meals with minimal human input. Early testers say it can handle complex recipes like creamy Tuscan chicken and paneer tikka masala without supervision. I'm somebody that doesn't love to cook. I enjoy cooking like with my boyfriend maybe. Sometimes I enjoy cooking with my mom, but during the day-to-day, I don't really want to be making like an intricate breakfast, an intricate lunch. I'm okay cooking dinner and that's pretty much it. So I'm kind of interested in this. I don't like the idea of Uber Eating a lot. I'm not really super into it, especially living in New York and with everything being like right here, I don't really have a reason. But my boyfriend did have a roommate once that had this like special microwave oven, and you could order on subscription these like meals that went into this special microwave oven. It kind of reminds me of like this is like the next level of what that was, right? And we see like Blue Apron and whatever. So I think this is just like the future of people wanting to make cooking a little bit more simple. $1,500 is really, really steep. But I imagine if you're like a tech bro living in Silicon Valley and have a ton of money to burn, this could be an option. I kind of want to know how well it works. I also want to see more videos of how it works. I did drop one in my newsletter. If you're interested in checking it out, go subscribe. I just want to see it in a home. I like product videos, but sometimes I'm like, is that as authentic as it possibly can be? And on that note, thank you so much for listening to Braun and Brains. If you like what I just spoke about, there's a lot more content similar to it in my newsletter, also called Braun and Brains. If you're interested in watching another video like this, please remember to subscribe and please comment. I just want to know if somebody's listening out there. It does take me a while to write, to record, and to edit these. Obviously, these are not as like high quality as the stuff that I am recording or editing for work, but it's still on top of my job. This has taken like a lot of hours, so if you guys can tell me that anybody's watching out there, that would be great. Have a great week, everybody.